All right, I'm here with Gerhard van Deventer of the FSCA, the main regulator of financial entities in South Africa. And he's going to talk with us about some of the red flags for consumers or new traders that should be looking out for and how to protect them, and how this is such an important thing for people to keep in mind that they're trading with a regulated broker. So, pleased to meet you. Thanks for coming here. We're at the Financemagnates Africa Summit, and it's a packed house here. And we can see, we look around the room, there are hundreds of new traders pouring in here. And really, what's the main message that you want to tell them?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. There are so many messages that FSCA and I would love to get out to people because this is such a high-risk environment that I really appreciate the opportunity. I think the main message from our side is certainly talking to the actual traders and the platform owners is, please keep in mind that not everybody can afford the risk of trading in CFDs, trading on platforms, of trading in underlying products like crypto. So the whole issue of suitability is very important, and that is something that we would really appreciate if our service providers would keep an eye on that. The whole issue of suitability. I think speaking to the community, the most important thing in my mind is keep a very close eye on the obvious red flags, because we can't forget that millions of rands goes missing every year because of scams. And crypto trading, platform trading, CFDs is a wonderful place for scammers to hide, because it's not something that the public is well known to the public. So you could easily create a story that's believable simply because it's so complicated. And my message is simply look for the obvious red flags, and if you see those red flags, don't ignore it. And maybe I should mention a few.
Let's get into that. I mean, we've seen it's a moving target, though, right? And one of the things we talk about is that the most legitimate brokers often can't offer the same things or say the same things, so that it's less tempting for users to trade with them or to put their money with them. And so, obviously anyone knows that promising things that are way out of reach should be a red flag, but how are the different ways that they do it, and different sort of angles that people are taking to lure in people to deposit their money, or essentially give away their money, as it turns out?
That's right. And if you add to that, I mean, you're absolutely right. Those completely unrealistic returns is the most important red flag. But there's a more sophisticated problem to this whole thing, and because our message is always only deal with regulated entities. Very important. Only deal with regulated entities. There's a framework that they must operate in, and there's something we can do if it goes wrong. The problem is there's a trend that we're seeing nowadays of impersonations. So the public has a really hard time because scammers would impersonate one of our regulated entities. And you said it's a moving target. You're so right about that, because I used to say, look out for bad language on a website or a social media platform. Look out for incorrect grammar. That's usually a sign that this is a scammer. It's not like that anymore. They've really upped their game. So you might see a really professional website being pawned off as a regulated entity. Best we can say there is contact the FSCA, check on our website whether this is the right number, whether this is the right entity that you're dealing with. But there are so many other things that the public can look at, and it's so important that they do their due diligence. But I think at the end of the day, if I can mention a catch-all, speak to the FSCA or speak to a regulated broker. Because my experience with our regulated brokers has been that they can spot a scam a mile away, as if they were working for me. So that's quite impressive.
And that's, I've been pleased here. Some of the advertising I've even seen, it's listed, the main things is just regulation from South Africa and around the world. And, you know, as consumers, I think people gloss over regulation in so many industries, right? You don't look at where your food is necessarily regulated, or you know, you're bombarded with it in a lot of ways. And so we're sort of trained to gloss that over. But increasingly, the good regulators are marketing that, and people are getting the message out. And it just can't be said enough that people can check on your website and find out, okay, is this regulated? Because I was amazed you were telling me the numbers of regulated entities here, and it's thousands. So, and there are thousands more that are unregulated or trying to impersonate.
Absolutely, and that's of course where our focus is with the unregulated, because that's where the big risk is. And yes, you are right. If you look at how all of this is put together, I think sometimes the public actually doesn't stand a chance. So it's so important actually to do that due diligence.
It's awful. The smartest people in the world sometimes work in scams. The most clever people.
It's so interesting you say that. There's a very interesting pattern that I've seen in my career, and my career stretches over many years in enforcement. And it's sometimes the smart people are actually targeted because they don't have time to look after their finances. To give you an idea, we had a scam and doctors were targeted because doctors are known for dealing in trust and then of course not having time to look after it. And there was a string of doctors that ended up being victims. And that's very unfortunate, but you are absolutely
they're clever
right.
people, right? Naturally.
Yes.
What about finfluencers? Why is that a red flag?
Finfluencers and influencers is a big issue for the FSCA, and it's certainly a focus area for enforcement in the coming year. And it's simply because what you're really doing is you're giving financial advice. And you have influence. So you're giving financial advice to people who's not going to think twice about it. And that is really, really dangerous. I mean, before we will grant a license for an intermediary, a broker, to provide advice, he or she must convince us that he has the skills, the qualifications, the experience, worked under supervision to be able to give that advice. There's no framework like that, licensing framework like that for a finfluencer or an influencer. And I mean, that's just asking for trouble. So we're certainly looking at that, and we're definitely going to start with a project to see whether we should be stepping into that space and making sure that it doesn't happen. I mean, you get it in a range. Some of them might be knowledgeable, but it's not guaranteed. But a very good South African example, if you're a really good rugby player, you're everybody's hero. But it doesn't mean you know anything about finances, you know. So that's the issue, really.
It's that trust, right? It's just different ways to build trust.
Absolutely.
And that is what broaches people to send their money. What about copy trading? Why is that dangerous for retail investors?
Okay. Copy trading, thanks for that question. It's certainly one of my pet subjects. Copy trading, if you really think about copy trading in the framework of the South African legislation, so what happens is you've got master trader, and whatever instruction goes onto his or her account gets copied onto the copy accounts. And it's often not even executed on the master account. So there's really no risk there. There's no market risk there. It's just traded on the copy accounts. What really happens there is there's somebody who makes investment decisions on behalf of other people. So to use legal and regulatory terms, that's really what happens there. Now the thing with that is, if that amounts to a discretionary investment manager. That's a really tough license to get, because before the FSCA will allow you to make investment decisions on behalf of other people, you will have to show that you're really capable of doing that. It's a very important job, and it's a job with a lot of risk. And it's a job where you need a lot of risk management. So copy traders, they don't fall within that framework. So we've taken some really material enforcement action the last year on copy trading. And what we're really saying to the platform operators, please don't allow those accounts. I think they call MAM accounts. Please don't allow that accounts, because nothing good can come of that. The cases that I've seen all ended really badly. Those linked accounts traded empty, and there's no recourse. So that's why I really think it is possible to do it legally, but that will be with a Category 2 discretionary license.
And it's interesting being here. You know, you see a lot of younger traders. You know, you must have seen a lot of stories now as a regular. These heartbreaking stories over and over again, people being cheated. And, absolutely. You know, there really is no recourse. There's police, but it's overwhelming. It's very difficult to prosecute. Might be offshore. You know, and that's why it keeps coming back to dealing with a regulated broker that's regulated by the FSCA here, because you have someone you can call who's there to help you, and you're there to help you. So, you know, we appreciate it. Now, is there any way to trade with a non-regulated broker here, or is that? I mean, there is a way to do it, but is that ever advisable?
It's never advisable. So we distinguish between a non-regulated person and an unregistered person. Unregistered person is a person that should have a license that doesn't have one. An unregulated person is somebody who doesn't require a license. But we have developed our supervisory framework to the point now with adding crypto that I can't imagine how you can now deal in financial services and not need a license. We've really got everything in the box now. I think the only exclusion would be private equity, but then you're not dealing with the public funds. You're dealing with the funds of a closed group, and they can all look after themselves. So it's not just dangerous to deal with unregulated people. It's really throwing your money away. And you are right, you can go to the police, but these are sophisticated issues. We are very lucky in the sense that we work very closely with the police, and we've got a very good relationship with them. There's a lot of workshop, there's a lot of joint investigations. So we pick these cases and we run it with the police and with our prosecution teams to make the point that this is where it's going to end if there's, of course, if there's dishonesty involved. Not every case. It's
very tough to get your money back.
Getting your money back, I have not seen that many times in my life.
Right, neither have I.
You made a very good point. With trading online, the money is out of the country. Once that has happened, what is going to be the case?
And a final word just on suitability. I mean, we come in and we see here, and a lot of people just have that dream of getting rich very quickly, and
including me.
You know, but it's like winning the lottery, right? It's very difficult to do in financial markets. Now, the point of financial markets is to make money, but it takes time. And how do people sort of navigate that suitability challenge while also being, you know, in the online world where you see the odd person who does get very rich very quickly, and there's that temptation because everyone has bills to pay.
Absolutely, and I think that's why this thing is so attractive. And you're absolutely right. There is really no shortcut to getting rich. And yes, there are those guys that just either got very lucky or worked very hard or was at the right time, the right place. But that is such a small number of traders out there. So I think what the public must understand is that we have investment houses that spend millions on analysts to analyze the markets and to do research and to come up with something there where you can end up with an acceptable return. How is it that you can have one guy on the side here just running a show and outperforming all of them? It's clearly not possible. I think, unfortunately, the public must accept that there's no shortcut. You can get a good return on investments, but that very important balance between your return and your risk must always be kept in mind. And as I said before, there are very, very few people that can really afford a high-risk investment.
Okay, so thanks so much for sharing us those messages. Please deal with a regulated entity. Please, trade slowly, take your time, stay in the game. That's what I always tell people. If you want to be a trader, if you want to be successful, it takes time, it takes effort, and certainly steer away from the bad actors and the people promising too much and offering some of these red flags. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Supporting this great event here at the Finance Magnates Africa Summit. We hope to see you again next year.
Thank you.